My name is Angelo Messore.
And when did you come to the college?
I started working here in 1986.
How did you hear about MCC?
Well, that's an interesting story because I was a teaching assistant at Yale in a course, and I had, in those days we had about 50 students, 2 classes. My advisor would give the lectures, and then I would do the section with the students. And I had this student in the class who, in those days, everybody wore jeans and T-shirts. And this young woman was always dressed to the hilt. And I wasn't sure. I thought, God, where did she come from? How is she going to do in this class? And we got to the midterm, and I was reading these midterms. And I came across this midterm. It was very well written. It was a good midterm. And I thought, who is this? And I tried to figure out who the student was, and I finally figured out it was the girl who was always dressed up. And I thought, this is strange. So I got to meet her afterwards, and I said, by the way, and her name was Nancy Kelly. I said, Nancy, this is a pretty good midterm. You did a pretty good job here, because I wasn't sure, though, she was going to be able to do a good job. And she said, oh, yeah. And I said, well, how long have you been here? She said, well, I just transferred here. And I said, really? Where did you transfer from? And she said, I went to Manchester Community College for 2 years. And then I transferred to Yale. And she had been a Truman Scholar winner, actually. She won the Truman Scholarship, and then she completed her bachelor's degree at Yale. And she finished it in 2 years, too, which is pretty remarkable because a lot of kids who are graduating from MCC now take 3 years at whatever institution they go to. But she did it in 2 years. Then she was a White House fellow, and then she went to Harvard Law School. And I started talking to her, and she was telling me, well, I went to MCC. Another thing that's interesting, she had attended East Catholic High School. One of the things I'm finding is that throughout the years, some of the best students I've ever had have come out of East Catholic High School. I don't know what they do there, but they do a pretty good job. Even the weak students from East Catholic who come here are pretty strong. But anyway, so that's how I heard about MCC through Nancy Kelly. And I haven't spoken to her in years and years, but I did have some contact with her when I ended up teaching here. Then what happened, I was just reading the Chronicle of Higher Education one day, and I came across this advertisement for a teaching job. And what was interesting about that was that I had been working in economics and political science, but I knew that if I went to work at a major research university, I'd have to just be in political science. I wouldn't be able to do economics because research universities tend to be pretty specialized, and you can't really do much interdisciplinary work. And I looked at the ad, and they wanted somebody to teach both political science and economics. So I thought, this is interesting. And I looked at it. It was Manchester Community College. So I applied, and I was contacted. I was interviewed. And I got to know Rick Lent, who was the division director for the Social Sciences Division. And he was an interesting guy, I have to say. And I think Rick Lent wanted me to be hired. And I came up here for an interview. And it was a good interview, actually. The committee was really interesting. I remember Bill Dowd was on the committee. John Stevens was on the committee. Kate McLaughlin was on the committee, a few other people. And so it was a fun interview. And then I went back home, and I didn't hear from them for weeks. So I figured, I thought, well, it's probably nothing's going to happen. Then one day I got a call from Rick Lent, who said, well, I'll never forget, he said, the wheels of... something, the wheels of time or something. They said, basically said, it's taking us a long time to get this through. But I think we'll be able to hire you. So I said, really? So, okay, well, just let me know. And then a few days later, I got a call from him again. And he said, well, if you're interested in the job, we can offer it to you. And so I thought, I don't know, should I not do it? I said, okay, fine, I'll try it. And so that's how I ended up at Manchester Community College. And that also leads up to the Truman Scholarship story, because when I came here, I'd heard about the Truman Scholarship through Nancy Kelly. And in those days, Harry Meisel was the Dean of Student Affairs, and he knew Nancy Kelly pretty well, too. And I said to him, by the way, I know one of your students, because she was at Yale, and she was in one of the classes that I taught at Yale. And he said, oh, yeah, Nancy Kelly. And Nancy Kelly actually came up to visit a few years later, and I spoke to her again. And Marianne Hanley at that point, who had been working with the Truman Scholarship program, said to me, why don't you do this? and advise students and help them prepare the applications. See, in those days, the Truman Scholarship was awarded to students graduating with an associate's degree who had completed the sophomore year. So, we used to take students who were in their last year and help them, and they would put together their application, and it was due in early January. They would file it, and then they would find out in April or May. And if they received the scholarship, it would pay for 2 years of college, the junior and senior year, and then I think 2 years of graduate school, or maybe 1 year of graduate school, I forgot. And so it was much easier to work with the students at that point because they were here, and we could work with them, and then, we could file the application and find out, if they were going to win or not. We had really good luck with the Truman Scholarship. I think we had like 5 Truman Scholarship winners. That's the most of any community college in the nation. But then what happened was they said, no, the Truman Foundation changed its format. It's not quite clear why. I think they wanted to focus the scholarship more towards the graduate school side of education. So what they did, they said, to apply for a Truman Scholarship now, you have to be in your junior year. So they told us, they cut out the community colleges from the equation. Although they said to us, if you have a graduate from MCC who goes off, say, to Smith College, and she's in her junior year, she can come back to Manchester and apply for the Truman through Manchester, even though she's a student at Smith. And that was the way we were supposed to do it, but that's a really cumbersome system. It just doesn't work out that well. A lot of kids, it's a lot easier to work with students when they're in their last year here, they're getting ready to graduate, they want to apply to schools, and they want a scholarship to go on to their next school with. So to make a long story short, our involvement with the Truman Scholarship has declined significantly because it's just much harder to do. But in the meantime, we've discovered the Jack Kent Cook Foundation Scholarship, which is similar to what the Truman Scholarship used to be. The students can apply for it while they're here. Usually they do the application in December and January. We submit the application, and then they find out in April or May if they've won the scholarship. We've done really well. I mean, I think we've had another 5 winners of the Jack Kent Cook Foundation Scholarship. Last year we had a bad year because I had 2 good candidates, but they never delivered on the applications, and so that was a problem. But hopefully we'll continue to do well.
Okay.
So
what was your impression of the college when you arrived here in the early to mid-1980s?
My impression of the college was I was fascinated by the faculty. We had a bunch of really interesting and accomplished faculty members. Especially in the social sciences division. I remember, talking to David Gidman, Sidney Lipshire, John Sutherland, there were Marianne Handley, Lois Daigle, there were some really, Howie Bergman, Rick Lent. It was quite a cast of characters. Don Garvey, Sebastian Moudry, Tom Lewis. It's just a real interesting group of people. A lot of them had PhDs. A lot of them, took scholarships seriously. They read. They were sort of intellectually alive. They were dedicated to education. They were dedicated to teaching. So it was really interesting, and I think I think in those days there was a really serious emphasis, a serious commitment to developing faculty, to hiring good faculty members, and to maintaining high academic standards. I mean, it was really a faculty-centered institution. We had a lot of faculty members, and they were all dedicated to teaching, and it was very special, I think. These were people who, were serious about reading and teaching.
Can you recall any anecdotes or funny stories from the 2.5 decades that you've been here?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, let me think a little bit. Oh, boy. You should have asked me before. I didn't. Beforehand. We had... for example, our division meetings were really raucous affairs. I mean, people would be shouting at each other. They would be insulting each other. David Gidman would routinely call Sebastian Moudry a jackass. It was like, people had strong opinions, and they were very, very willing to express these opinions. And, it made for quite a, even, faculty or the faculty senate meetings were, pretty boisterous affairs.
Do you think the culture of the college, whether division or faculty senate, has changed over time?
Oh yeah, I mean, we don't have as many faculty members anymore to begin with. When I came here, we had 4 faculty in the history department. Now we're down to 1. We had 2 in political science. We've got 1. 2 in economics, Fatma and Mohammed. Now we're down to 1, Fatma. We just don't have as many faculty, and I don't think there has been as much of an emphasis in hiring faculty as there once was. It's just, when I go to, academic senate meetings, it's, the academic senate is a shadow of its former self. There just aren't as many people there anymore. And I think, frankly, it disturbs me. I mean, I think we're moving away from a model of a community college where the faculty constitute the heart of the enterprise. Now, I don't know if you can have a college without faculty members, but what they're doing basically is hiring adjuncts. But I don't see that. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see that you can really have an academically oriented college when you have when it's basically run on adjuncts. You're really changing the nature of the institution if you do that. So I don't know. Somebody's got to think about this. Is this the way we're going to go? The problem that we've got here now is that most of the faculty have been here the longest. So when there are retirements, they come out of the faculty ranks. So we have a situation where faculty retire, but they're not being replaced. And boom. So we end up with a situation where full-time faculty teach only like 40% of the courses. Now, again, people say, I have nothing against adjuncts. We have some very talented adjuncts. There's no doubt about that. But with adjuncts, because they're running around doing a lot of different things, many of them are teaching at 3 or 4 different schools. It's hard for them to be as committed to the institution as a full-time faculty member would be. And then also, we have very good adjuncts, but then we have adjuncts that I've quite frankly, I've had problems with adjuncts in political science. I had one guy who took off in the middle of the semester. He's gone, and we had to figure out a way to patch up the course. And the kids who were in that course did not get a real course that semester. The teacher abandoned. So, and we were stuck. And okay, what do we do now? I mean, I was already teaching 5 courses. I wasn't going to jump in and do another course. And so, fortunately, we found a very generous part-timer who came in and said, "Fine, I'll pick up the course here." But it was a very disjointed course that semester for the students who were taking it. What can I do? But again, somebody's got to think about what makes a college. One of the things I found, too, is that, and I think this may have something, when I came here, people really revered Fred Lowe. And the idea was that, they thought that Fred Lowe had really been, a very important figure in the founding of the college and in setting the academic tone of the college. Well, I looked up Fred Lowe's qualifications. Fred Lowe had a PhD from Columbia and a bachelor's degree from Williams. He had a good sense of what education is all about. He attended some of the premier institutions in this country. And so when he came here, my sense of it, he wanted to create a college that, reflected the academic values that he had been exposed to at Williams and at Columbia. And that's why this college was such a gem, because there were a lot of people here who wanted to create a liberal arts college that would be open to students from all over the service area, and from this area, and students who would benefit from being able to take courses and to experience the beauty of a liberal arts education. And we had a lot of faculty members who were devoted and committed to the liberal arts. One story I can tell you, I bought a car, and I bought a used Volvo years ago, and I was talking to the guy who sold me the Volvo, and he's quite a character. He's a funny guy. And when I told him that I taught at MCC, he looked at me and goes, "My God, I went to MCC." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I went to MCC." He said, I was a terrible high school student. He worked in his family's restaurant for when he was in high school, he spent more time working in his family's restaurant than doing academic work. And then But finally, he decided he had to go to college, and so he applied to Manchester. And he said, this was back in the late 60s, and back in those days, Fred Lowe interviewed every student. He said, yeah, Dr. Lowe interviewed me. And he said to me, you've been a terrible student in high school. And Victor said, yeah, I was a terrible student in high school, but I'm willing to work. And he said to me, that's what Dr. Lowe said. He said, as long as you're willing to work, I'll take you. And he got into Manchester, and he said he worked really hard, and he finished Manchester, and then he went on to Central. He went to Central, he majored in business, and then he started working in the food service industry. He worked for Marriott, and he worked for a lot of big companies in food service. Then he retired, and he wanted to do something with his time, and he started selling cars at this place. And so he said, Manchester was the best thing that ever happened to me. Mm-hmm. And then he said, and I have a son, and my son went to college. His son graduated from Stanford and then went to the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. And now he's an investment banker in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So there you go. I mean, that's what these people were talking about. You offer, ordinary people a chance to get a good education, and it kind of it expands. It goes on to the next generation. It was quite a story, but there are a lot of people out there who benefited from Manchester in this way, and it's really extraordinary.
You also are the force behind the Manchester Political Union. Can you talk a little about MPU?
Yeah, the MPU is a lot of fun, and I can't even say that I pushed to create it. It's really a student organization. I was sitting in my office one afternoon, and the student came to the door, and he said, "You're Mr. Messore?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I want to start a club." And I said, "Really? Okay, what kind of a club?" "I want to start a political science club." So I said, "Okay, well, let's do it." And so I have my friend here, and we want to do it. And I said, "Fine." So we sort of talked about it and what kind of a name it should have and what it should do. And they went to student affairs. They got all the paperwork. They wrote the Constitution. We came up with a name, and there it was. And we started the club, and it's been fun. Students. The students said to me, we're only supposed to meet once a month, but we want to meet more often. So I said, fine, we'll meet more often. So, students will have me meet every week for an hour and a half, sometimes even 2 hours. We're sitting in one of these rooms, and these kids are talking, and they want to do this, and they want to organize that, and, they want to talk about politics, and they want to talk about what's going on in their lives. And, they want to go on trips, and we go to the state legislature, and we invite politicians to come and talk, and I have to force them to do a community service project and all that kind of stuff. But it's, they enjoy it. Every year it's a different cast of characters. I don't know who's coming back and what they're going to do. The one thing about it, though, is a lot of those students have graduated. A lot of the kids in that club have completed their associate's degrees and have moved on. I've got 2 going to UConn, one went to UMass, one went to George Washington University, another one went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University down in Arizona. The kid who went to, who is now at George Washington University, was President Obama gave a speech at George Washington University a few months ago, and Dylan was in the audience, and so he telephoned the other people in the MPU, and he said, "I'm here," and he showed them pictures, and so they got a big kick out of sort of vicariously experiencing the Obama speech at George Washington University through a member of the club. But it's true. I mean, I think clubs are helpful because they create smaller communities. Students get to know each other. They encourage each other. The kids sort of, understand the importance, or they become more aware of the importance of graduating, and they graduate and they go on to do things. So it's been a good experience. I mean, I'm glad it's been working out. Every year I don't know how it's going to work out. One year I've got a bunch of members and we do a lot. Another year I may have fewer members and it's harder to push them to do things. It's hard to tell, but sometimes it works out better some years than others. But it's been a fun. It's been a great experience, and it's been a lot of fun.
When you look back at your time here, what accomplishment stands out in your mind?
I think, I'm very proud of what I did with the Truman Foundation, with the Truman Scholarship, with the Jack Kent Cooke Scholarship. I'm pleased with the courses I've been teaching. I've enjoyed the students a great deal. And I'm especially pleased by by knowing that these kids have gone on, that they've graduated, that and they're moving on with their lives, and that they're able to accomplish things. A lot of them, I had one kid. His mom said to me, "Thanks very much for all you did for John." He was having a lot of trouble, but he came here and he's taken all these courses. He's done very well, and now he's going on to UConn. And that's a very that's a good thing. I mean, that's at the end of the day, helping students to do something with their lives and to achieve their goals is, I think, a good thing to do.
If you were talking to someone who had just been hired to begin teaching at MCC this fall, what advice would you give that individual?
Oh, I don't know. I would probably say that you should avoid too many committees, and get involved in activities that you find sort of personally rewarding. If you like student clubs, you should be involved in student clubs. I think that I think you should. I think it's important for new faculty members to sort of think of the goals of the college or the values of the college and feel comfortable, with the college. Well, one of the problems is I think there has to be a sense that, what is this college all about? When I came here, I had a really good sense of what this college was about, and that was articulated by all the faculty members who were here. So it was unmistakable. Now, I'm thinking, because we have so many fewer faculty members, it's not quite clear if a new faculty member comes to campus and becomes part of the college. The question I have is, is the college culture, is the academic culture of the college strong enough to make an impression on this newly hired faculty member? I mean, and that's, but I have contact with newly hired faculty members, and I try to, encourage them to focus on teaching and to be involved in the college culture, and to, I think for me the most important thing these days, especially given the changes that have occurred in our culture, is to try to get students to read books. I think that's important. And unfortunately, students are not reading the way they once did. And that's a real problem for writing. It's a real problem for thinking. People think I'm a dinosaur probably, but I think books are important. I mean, you could tell if you go to my office, but I do think books are not important. I think people ought to be able to read, and I think people ought to be able to deal with ideas. And that's why I think a liberal arts education is important. I mean, when I first started in college, I wasn't sure liberal arts education was that significant. I thought, why do we have to go through this? Why don't you just learn a skill, study accounting, and get a job? But I think a liberal arts education is important, and I think it's important for students to get through it, and it's important for students to be able to read and to be able to understand ideas and critically examine ideas. And the only way you do that is by reading and working at it. Unfortunately, we live in a culture where people want shortcuts. People want to be able to get to something quickly, but that's not conducive to a solid education.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't know. No, all I can say is, I have to say I've been fortunate because I've enjoyed my job, and I've really enjoyed working at this college for so many years. I think, it's been a pretty good thing, and I just hope that the college prospers and that students benefit from all that it has to offer in the coming years.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. I think that's it.
Sorry about that.
I have a couple.
Oh, okay. You've got a few. We'll keep rolling, sure.
Yeah. Going from the Yale experience to here, was there an adjustment to dealing with the students that you were encountering at the community college level, or did you find that not to be an issue?
You know, it was interesting because when I first came here, I figured here I'm going from Yale students to community college students, and I thought, what's this going to be like? And the reality here is and was that there are a few students here who are as good as the students at Yale. And then there are more students who are weak. Believe it or not, I mean, I had a lot of students at Yale who, significant number who were, I used to look at their writing and think, how the hell did this kid get into Yale?
This was in the 80s.
Yeah, this was the 80s. Now, in those days, Yale would take 1 out of 7 students. Now Yale is taking 1 out of 14 students. So I hope the quality is better, but I don't even know if that's true. But here you had more out of a class of 40, you would have 10 students who were weak and were not equipped to do to college level work. At Yale, you wouldn't find that many. In a class of 25, you might find 3 or 4, and you'd scratch your head. And some of them were hockey players, for example.
This may be an unfair question, but I have to ask.
No. It's
No, I haven't heard it yet. Can you talk to us about the David Goodman Award? You're not familiar with it?
No. Oh, yes, I remember the Messy Desk Award. I won that.
You won a Messy Desk Award?
Yes, the David Goodman Award was given to the person who had the messiest desk. Although my whole office is a mess. So,
But David Goodman's desk was a horrible mess.
Yeah.
He never cashed his checks.
He never cashed his check.
Now they've been in drawers.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll never forget talking to David Goodman. David Goodman was a brilliant guy. He was phenomenal. I mean, he'd been all over, had incredible experiences, and one of the reasons I think one of the reasons I ended up staying here for so many years is because I had colleagues like David Goodman and John Sutherland and Bob Richardson and Howie Bergman and Marianne Handley. So forth. I mean, Steve Kassan. I mean, they're really interesting people.
Good?
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.